Welcome back to Behavior Shift. In our last episode, we talked about the idea of loss aversion. That's the concept that losing hurts more than winning feels good. And today we're going to build on that a little bit more with a concept that doesn't get nearly enough attention.
Yeah, Ben, it's one that's called sure loss. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. When you're thinking about money, careers, relationships, even health decisions, sure loss shows its ugly head.
All right, so set the stage here. What do you mean by sure loss?
So, sure loss is a specific part of loss aversion theory. It's what happens when we're forced to move from what's called an unrealized loss, a loss that exists just on paper or just in our heads, to a real certain loss. And so, when that moment shows up, something strange happens. So, that moment, like if I have to sell a stock and I'm doing it at a loss, right? Ooh, something happens. We become more risk seeking, not less. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get
Interesting.
into this.
So this fear of loss can stop us from starting, but it
Hmm.
can also, in the other end of the spectrum, stop us from stopping.
Yes, exactly. So it's that sure loss stops us from stopping, making us more risk wanting, whereas fear of loss or loss aversion itself stops us from starting. So loss aversion has two faces.
All right, let's look at the first face, the one
Okay.
fear that stops us from actually getting started in the first place.
Okay, so this is the version that most people recognize. It's loss aversion keeps us from taking risks in the first place. There's that little voice inside our head that's saying, "What if this goes wrong?" So we tend to become incrementalists, small risk, small upside, minimal pain. If we fail, we don't take that big, leap, right? Yeah.
It's the classic coin flip bet.
Right. So there's a great video out there. You can do $10 coin flip. I think you can find it, but it's this, right? So I walk up to you, Ben, and I say, "Hey, let's flip a coin. Heads, you win $10. Tails, you pay me $10, right?" Most people won't take it, even though the odds are 50-50. You could gain $10, you could lose $10. It's a 50-50 chance, right?
So what if you sweeten the deal a little bit?
All right. So if I offer you $15 for your $10 risk, many people will still say no. Even $20 for your $10 risk. So if I say, I'll pay you $20 if you get heads, you just have to pay me 10 if you get tails, that is, uh, economically speaking, stupid. It's because the expected value is positive. In other words, I am more likely to make money than not on that, particularly if we do more than one flip, and even then, people do this. So, um, people will happily give up the upside to avoid the possibility of losing that $10.
Crazy. Pain avoidance is beating rational math.
Every time.
All right, so let's flip it over. Not like the coin, but the face.
Ta-da-tch.
What happens when loss is already on the table?
Alright, so this is where sure loss shows up, right? And it's SURE, sure loss, right? Imagine you bought a stock at $50 and now it's trading at $40. That's a $10 loss. But that loss is just on paper. It's unrealized. It's not real until you sell it.
And when you sell it, that means that you're realizing that loss and admitting failure in your investment.
Yeah. So, as Annie Duke puts it, you go from failing to having failed, right? So, by selling that stock, you lock into a sure loss, and our brains hate that. So, instead of cutting our losses, oh my gosh, the stock has gone down to $40. We tend to take the bigger risk and hoping that luck will bail us out. All right. I'm gonna keep holding onto that stock. I'm not gonna sell it because tomorrow it might go back up to 42 or 45, 50, maybe even $60. Oh my gosh. So
So instead of stopping when we probably should, we actually double down on that potentially bad investment.
Yeah, and so you see this in betting experiments all of the time, and here's one. So, I owe you $100. I
Mhm.
offer a coin flip. Heads, I erase all the debt. Tails, I pay you 200. Now, most people won't take that bet, right?
Because again, it's that 50-50 risk.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? But now let's flip the scenario. You owe me $100 and I offer the same coin flip. Heads, your bet disappears. Tails, you owe me 200.
Same odds, same math.
Same odds, same math. They're just reversed. But now far more people take that bet. Why? Because with a little luck, I can wipe that slate clean. I can get rid of my $100 loss. It feels like I'm not, I'm yeah, sure, I'm doubling my potential loss, but that gamble somehow emotionally feels better than accepting the sure loss that I have to owe you $100. There's a chance. There's a
And this
50-50 chance that I
and
am gonna break free and not have that debt at all.
and that right there is Las Vegas in a nutshell, right?
That's exactly Las Vegas. Um, but it's also professional investing. So there's an interesting thing. Annie Duke talked about this in the Behavioral Grooves episode we did. So professional traders often do what they call two different things. They set a stop loss and they do a take gain. And so a stop loss is basically that $50 stock, if it goes down to 40, I'm gonna sell it because I know I don't wanna lose more than that, and that's where I go. And a take gain is, oh, that stock, I will sell that stock once it gets up to $70, right? Um, and so this is interesting because these are professionals, right? So you would think they would be very rational. So what happens? What do you think happens, Ben?
I think loss aversion gets them in both scenarios.
Yeah, so one, they cancel the stop losses, because that turns an unrealized loss into a sure one. So that stock goes down to 40, it's supposed to do an automatic sell at that point, and I stop it. I say, "Nope, I think I'm gonna just wait a few more days." And then the stock goes down to $35 or down to $30 or whatever, right? And they don't wait on the take gain. So instead of waiting until that stock gets to 70, stock's up to 60, they're going, "Well, crap. I just made $10. I'm gonna take that because I could
Mhm.
potentially lose that. The stock could go back down." So we take those early gains because we don't wanna risk giving back what we've already won.
And boom, that's loss aversion again on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, so we're risk averse in gains and risk seeking in losses.
And now we've been talking about money here. This isn't just about money though, right?
Yeah, it's not even close. So think about staying in a bad job because quitting would waste the years you've invested, or staying in an unhealthy relationship because ending it would make the loss real, or pushing through a failing strategy at work because backing out feels worse than doubling down on a failed strategy. Yeah.
So when we feel like we're losing, we start to chase the long shots.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So when we feel like we're winning, we tend to protect what we have.
That's a good way to put it. And so what's the one thing that we want to walk away from this conversation with?
So I think there's a couple things here, right? So loss aversion doesn't just shape whether or not we take risks. It shapes when we take those risks. And so the fear of loss keeps us from starting and taking a risk, but the fear of a sure loss keeps us from stopping when we're in that risky situation.
And if we don't see that pattern, we mistake it for our gut instinct, right?
Right, so if we don't understand why this is, I'm just, I'll bet, I'll take the bet to erase my $100 bet or debt to you, but could potentially get it to 200, but I won't take the bet that says, "Hey, you'll pay me 100 and I'll owe you 200," if that's there. So the awareness is everything here, and so once you start to recognize that, and once you start to recognize sure loss is at play, you can ask the real question. Am I taking this risk because I'm smart and this is the right thing to do, or because I'm trying to avoid admitting that I actually have a loss going on here?
I think that right there is a pretty powerful lens that we can use for this
Yeah.
situation.
And if you want to go deeper, this connects closely to prospect theory, to disposition effect, to sunk cost fallacy, all different ways of basically, how our brain struggles with gains, losses, and letting go.
All right. Well, thanks, Kurt. That is sure loss for everybody. We appreciate you all listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah. And remember, sometimes the bravest move isn't pushing forward, it's knowing when to stop, Ben. You got to stop.
And that's when we should stop recording right now.